Well, hello and welcome to another podcast called Think Your Way to an Epic Life. And I'm so stoked today because this is going to be really valuable information. I've got a couple here, and she's a realtor and he's an FBI analyst. So we're going to talk about how do they work together to raise their family, to have the success that they have, to lead their team, to lead their everything. And it's very special to me because I'm introducing, first off, Ryan Major.
Hi.
Everybody's heard of Ryan, and her amazing studly husband, Justin Major.
How's it going?
So this is, I really appreciate you guys taking the time and opening yourselves up and being willing to talk about this. So it didn't start out this way. It started off, let's talk about when you met. Let's talk at the very back to the beginning of when you met.
Okay, so we were children. I was 20, you were 22? Had just turned 22? Yeah. And we met, we were in college. I was going to school at Texas State. He was still in the Army. He had a sweet little baby daughter that was like 18 months old. And we didn't know anything or what we were doing, but we knew we were going to be together. And so that was in 2006 when we started dating. And now we've been married since 2008. And I got into the real estate business in 2015. He became an analyst when? 2010. So, it's been a learning curve.
Shoo, it's a lot. Okay, so when you first got married, what was your work situation?
We both worked and we were both going to school full time. So we worked, we went to school, we took care of Bethany, and that was about it. And then after I graduated, I went to work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Yay. And I worked from like 7 a.m. to about 6:30 at night. And he was going to school, finishing up his degree, and then he worked at the vet clinic. What were your hours? I don't remember.
Anytime I wasn't in school, I was at the vet clinic working. So we had Bethany in daycare. And so it was usually I would get off work at the vet clinic, pick her up. Whether Ryan had a lot of shifts at the Austin airport. So those were crazy weird hours. And you just kind of make it work, right? Like it is what it is. And you do what you have to do to kind of find the normal, find the day to day. So.
Wow. So there wasn't a whole lot of time for vacations and fun and sleeping and that kind of stuff.
Time or money.
There was no money.
Yeah, we were broke college kids for sure. Yeah. Even, I had from my military service, I had the GI Bill, and the newer one does a lot. It does a lot more, but the previous one, it was just like, here's this much money a month that's supposed to cover everything. And
it didn't.
Yeah, it did not whatsoever. So.
Wow. Yeah. So people looking at your lives today would say everything you're just lucky.
Oh yeah, we're so lucky. It's so easy every day. We just like get up and money rains on us and like everybody's happy all the time.
Right?
So easy.
It just happens. You just sit and you go, and it just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do have to and then you get to work.
So the umming is a good thing.
The umming is a good thing. You taught me that.
And then go to
work.
How do you spell work?
WERK.
Okay. Go to work. That's what I'm talking about. Go to work. All right. So when you got through college. Now let's say you're both graduated. Now what?
So I graduated, went to work at Enterprise. He graduated.
So my degree was in pre-veterinary science. So the plan was to go to vet school, become a veterinarian. I had a bunch of Army buddies that were contracting out of DC, and they kept telling me, annoyingly so, how much money they were making doing the government contract work. And they're like, you'll get a lot of cash, and then you can just pay for vet school. So you're not having to take out tons of loans. And that sounded good, and so I applied, and I actually got a contract. But when I was applying, I applied for a bunch of government positions also, and one of which was with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I heard back from them, and I had an interview
while we were at Disney.
Yeah, Basically, my mom she had timeshares, and so she gifted so we could go to Disney with our family. And the only time they could do the interview was during that week, and I already had that scheduled. So I was on the balcony, I think, of our little resort in Orlando, Florida, taking this call, my panel interview.
Was it a video call?
No.
No, it was 2010.
Yeah, thankfully that wasn't the norm. So I had the interview, and then I ended up getting the job. And
can I just back up just for a second?
Yeah.
How did it feel when you put out all these applications and the FBI responded?
I don't know. I've had some severely interesting things happen in my life, so it didn't feel overly odd, but it was cool. I'm just like, okay, let's see what happens. And that's really, once I heard I got the job, I'm like, okay, honey, they would like me. Originally it was October to show up, and then I got a call and they're like, can you be here August 1st? So our timeline shifted completely, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna tell them yes, because
you don't say no to the FBI,
right? You don't want to say no and rock the boat. And so we said yes. And
that was crazy too, because Bethany was 5, fixing to start kindergarten, and it was nuts.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the fact that your husband was about to go to work for the FBI?
Well, it's freaking cool.
Right?
That's cool.
I'm married to an FBI analyst.
That's exactly how I was like, this is the cool. So I really thought we were going to get to Virginia and everybody would think it was cool. And then what I found out was everybody in Virginia's husband or wife works for the FBI. So
or the State Department or the U.S. Marshals, or name any 3-letter, government organization. They're all there.
Our home group at church, I think there were 12 couples, and literally everybody had at least one of them working for the government. And so it was just the culture there, which was cool. But yeah, it was super scary, because he was going to leave to go to the academy, and we didn't know for sure where we were going to be sent after that 8 weeks, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Was that
10 weeks? But
sure, that details are important. So yeah, we didn't know where we were going to be, but I had this kid that now I'm in charge of because he's gone, and so we had to get her in school because kindergarten starts when you're 5, and so I was like, okay, well, can you maybe just ask, can you tell us where we're going to live so that we know? And thankfully, we were able to find out, since he was going to be staying at Quantico and working there, that we would be in the same spot. So Bethany and I packed up the condo, and we got everything ready to go, and we loaded it into the U-Haul. And then right after he left to start the academy, because we had a little lag in time before we left, found out I was pregnant with Maddie. And so he was at the academy, in these classes. I couldn't call him. I found out during the work day, because I'm me and I was impatient. I was like, we have to know. And so I'm trying to get a hold of him. I probably called you 170 times. Yeah. He probably got to his phone and was like, oh my God,
what happened?
But yeah, so that added another layer of whoa. But you know what? We made it work. We got there, and we were there for 4 years in Virginia.
Okay, so what was that like, the 4 years that you were in Virginia? Were you working and raising the family?
So I worked for Enterprise. I transferred out there and worked up until I had Maddie. And then after maternity leave, we decided that it would be better for me to stay home, because to put an infant in daycare in Virginia, it was going to cost more than I was going to make. So it just didn't matter. So we just stayed home, and it was cool. I mean, you know me, right? If I'm in, I'm all in. And so I went pretty hard as a stay-at-home mom. I was meal planning and things and learning and serving at the church every day. And I was hardcore. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. But I didn't like being a stay-at-home mom. That's not what's best use of me. I don't know. What was your perception of that time?
You do the next thing, you're trying to figure out. For me, I knew where I was going to be placed job wise. But then as far as what the job looks like, what that's going to be, you don't have the training. Kind of gets you prepared to do a job, but you don't know, because of the way the Bureau works, depending on where you end up, that job could be any aspect of the things they taught you, more so, less so. And so that was a lot of my focus, get them here. And then just how can I do the best job I can where I've been put? So
I think the best part of that time, because we were so young when we got married and I'm an only child. And so my family and I are super, super close. And it made us stand on our own feet, just the two of us, and work as a team because we had no support system. So up until the last 12 months, we've never lived close to either one of our families. We've always been hours and hours and hours away. And so when we ripped the Band-Aid off and moved 24 hours away from my family, and God only knows how far away of a drive Oregon would be to Virginia, really far, we had to figure it out. And so learning how to work together as a team, the four of us, not just Justin and I, but the kids too, even when they were small, how do we do this without a support system? And we had church family. That was great. But no mom and dad to say, hey, can you come get these kids? Or Dad, can you come? There's something falling from the ceiling and Justin's at work. Like, can you come deal with this? Like, we figured it out. And I think that has a lot to do with our success now because the four of us work as a team and we're pretty good.
So you did 4 years of being the best stay-at-home mom, PTA mom,
no, never
church
PTA.
lady, never PTA. Okay.
Hard pass. Not for me.
Okay.
But church mom, stay-at-home mom, we did, we made cookies and I made all their little Valentines, and birthday parties birthday parties are still, I really like fanfare.
No.
I know. So we're always extra. And truthfully learning how to manage a family of 4. I'm an only child, so it was never a family more than just one kid. So it was a good time. I look back on that time very happily. I enjoyed it. What about you?
Well, but you were always looking for like something extra to it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but she got her NASM certification, which is the kind of mainstream personal trainer certification.
National Association of Sports Medicine.
Yeah, exactly that. And because even though she would be busy with the kids, she always has a drive to learn something more, do something more.
So she got her personal training licenses.
Yeah.
As a personal trainer, did you actually go be a personal trainer?
I was. Yeah. So I started health coaching, and I had a bunch of clients that would come to me and I would write their meal plans and we would set their goals and we would work out their workouts. And then I could charge more if I was certified. So I got the NASM certification. I ended up competing in 2-figure competitions. I placed 5th in one, no placement in the other one. But that was one of the most challenging things ever, I think, probably for both of us, because when I started that training to do the figure competitions alongside my personal training business, he decides, well, I want to see what this is really like so I can really understand what my wife is going through. So he starts doing the diet and the workouts alongside me without doing a show. That's just who this guy is. Like, he's the best.
I have this thing about it's the reason I think marriages struggle sometimes. It's gaps, right? Like, and if you have a little gap and you let it grow over time, it becomes a big gap, which becomes an issue in a marriage. So like, I have a Facebook post I wrote forever ago, but for like, there's the wife that hates her husband watching football all the time. And it's like, well, that's a gap that you could learn a little bit about what his favorite team is. Like, it wouldn't take long, like a couple articles, twice a week about his favorite team, something that's going on with the team, to like have a conversation and be able to just slowly close that gap. And vice versa. So for us, she's going to be like just all of the routine and the discipline that's required to grow muscles in a more structured, strategic way. I knew that I wanted to be able to like have a conversation and be a part of that in some way, and be able to understand like when she's, going through some of these, like the cutting phases of when you're trying to get rid of that extra fat to have the muscles pop more, that I would know what that's like and have experienced it a little bit. Still not having any desire to be in a show or do, flex in front of people.
You just didn't want to wear that short.
Yeah, I didn't want to wear the little Speedo. But yeah, that was generally, I think it's just so important that you like at least make an effort to help close those gaps in the relationship.
And and that just goes forward through the next phase of our life too. I mean, you're just the best at that. Like, you always want to learn. Like, you listen to Buffini every Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, I love consuming information and knowledge, and Buffini's one that he's easy to listen to regardless. And like, if you want to get pumped up, like he's definitely one of those that add it to your list of, you'll get fired up very quickly.
Yeah, yep. He is definitely our hero. So in that vein, last night, was it last night?
Night before
last, we were having conversations about real estate, and I was like, are you a realtor? It's just amazing to me how much knowledge you have. And so many husbands and wives are guilty of, what does your husband do? He works at this place. Well, what does he do? I don't know. He comes home and then we don't ever talk about it, right? So I really like that. So where did you get that from?
I would say that I love having information and being able to like answer questions like about anything. And we joke that I'm, like a wealth of useless knowledge, and it's true. Like, I know a lot. They're fun little anecdotal things. Not that it'll, I might win a couple extra $100 in Jeopardy someday, but I don't know that it would really, it benefits me on a daily basis. But I mean, with real estate, it's interesting. Mainly, I see how fired up she gets over everything. And since we talk through a lot of stuff, and any of the, especially early real estate, the things that would, kind of rock her boat a little bit, she'd have to talk it through with somebody. And it was me. And so it was like, okay, well, whether it was a legality of something or someone like trying to pressure her, or, like in the negotiation phase of things. And her heart is always towards the client's best interests. And so when she felt she let them down, or, somebody was making her feel like she wasn't, we would have that conversation. And so I would learn a lot just through those conversations and talking through those different issues, real estate issues. And then because of the investment side of things, I like the bigger pockets, like I'll consume a lot of those videos and kind of things just to know about it, whether we dip our toes in certain areas at different times, which we will eventually, but I want to know about it. And, it's like you should invest in what you know. And so I want to know if I'm going to do that, I need to know about it. So,
yeah. And I mean, the other LLC is in your name, like the investment LLC, that's your baby. I sign on it.
Major developments. That's you. Major Realty. That's me.
Yeah. So I wanted a delineation there where he could take it and run with it. Because you started this, sir. This whole thing is your fault.
It is.
Because when we bought the condo, that was our first time to buy anything, but that was all you. And so then when we bought the Virginia house, that was all me. And so we kind of delineated, and we both realized we both really like this whole thing. So when I was getting my real estate license, it was his idea, mainly because we needed money. Obviously you get a job because you need money, but we were like, what can I do where I can use your GI Bill? Like, do you think if I took my real estate classes at TJC that they would give me your GI Bill? And he's like, I don't know, let's see. So we went, that was how short-sighted we were. Wow. Was like, we could get that $1,100 a month for the GI Bill. I'll just go take these classes. And then once I got my license, it was like, well, if I can make $50,000 a year, like that would be great. Like, it's just, $50,000. That would be enough. The kids could have dance lessons. We could have horse stuff. Like, it would be enough. Well, we do that now. That's enough. So anyway.
So before we go too far to that, what was it like when you transitioned from this is going to be a part-time gig where I'm going to, do okay, but I'm still mom, I'm still wife, I'm still doing all the laundry, all the dishes, all the grocery shopping, all the dinners, to where you are now. What was that like? And I'm going to ask you, Justin.
Oh, good.
Well, early on, I mean, because we had in our like 2 premarital counseling sessions, or it was so the guy who married us, it was a family friend of Ryan's, and it was good, but it didn't really, it was more like, we're just going to have a conversation and then
I'll sign the thing.
Yeah. But the one thing he did do, it was expectations. Like, when you get into like, what is the expectation of she of me and me of her, like, what does that look like? And so, because that is important, we had that conversation, and it was very much kind of laid out like, okay, well, if you're not working, like, more of the house stuff, the kids stuff, and then as it was an understanding that, like, as you would work, it was just kind of an equal who had the time in that place, laundry, dishes, grocery shopping, all of that. And so when we went to Virginia and she was working less before she started the personal training stuff, it was easy, and it was understood, because it's just like, I'm bringing in the money and you're managing the house. And so that was easy. And then transitioning, that's when it was a little more difficult, because you're in your routine, you're in, the easy tracks. And then it's just like, oh, like, we're really both working like 40 hours. Okay, what now? And so we kind of, it's been several conversations again and again, because there's things that I didn't do that there was an expectation now that I would help with, but it wasn't necessarily communicated. And when you don't communicate, it becomes, there's strife there.
Weird.
And vice versa. There's the times that, like, because we'd know each other's schedules, like, that one could do something and then they didn't, because it was the assumptions that always get in trouble, and then with real estate, especially that transition to high functioning, lots of work, it was even more so that it's like, okay, well, I'm still at my 40 hours a week, like, so kids, dishes, like, wherever I can. The biggest thing is the kid stuff is like picking up from school, or because I'm in town and she would still be in Lindale. And that's the one thing that she would figure out still most of the time. But all the other, like, cooking, our oldest now would probably argue, she's like, well, I do a lot. I'm like, well, yes, because you drive now and
I can hear her
you
squawking.
Like, you have a free car. That's the whole, like, this car is not yours. It is the family car that you're allowed to drive. And part of the payment of that is you do these things. And so, but it's all conversations, right? Like, that's the biggest thing, is continuing to have those conversations, because life changes minute to minute, hour to hour, like, what someone is able to do, what you're expecting them to do, and you have to talk about it.
I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of female rainmakers and mega agents, or agents who are, like, on that path, right? Like, they feel the snowball start to run and they're like, okay, business is taking off, and they don't take a step back far enough from it to see that the family stuff it still has to get taken care of. And so as women, we have this tendency to be like, I got this. Like, I got this. I can handle this. I can handle that. I can handle your stuff over there. Like, just give it to me and I'll take care of it. And then they get to this place where they're like, ah, and they're like freaking out because you can't. We're one person, like, and it's not fair to him to have a wife that's so overwhelmed because I haven't given any of that away. And so I'll never forget it. I was at the Buffini conference in January of 2019, and Julie Woods, who's a mega agent, not KW, but she's in Longview. She has her boutique brokerage. She was on stage at Buffini. I had never met her before, but I had done a deal with one of her team agents. So I was like, my interest was piqued, right? And she's up there and she said, listen, if you haven't leaned into leverage, you've missed the boat. If there's something that you're not good at and you don't like to do it, stop doing it. And it was like, ding, 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 ding. And we've had a housekeeper for a long time, but I have a tendency, if I give something away, I take it back because I feel guilty about giving it away. Or I'll give it away and then I'll micromanage to where I'm like, you folded that towel wrong. You bought the wrong peanut butter. He doesn't buy the wrong peanut butter anymore, but he did. You bought the wrong peanut butter, or that's not the laundry soap we like, right? Right? Like me. And so I had to like really regulate my expectations with that of like, if I'm going to ask Madison, our now 11-year-old, to fold the laundry, I can correct the way she folded it so that she does it right the next time. But I can't just be like, you did it wrong, I'm going to take that back. Because that then teaches her bad habits. Oh, I'll just do it wrong and then mom will do it. Or it cuts her off at the knees and she feels like she can't do it right. So I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of my friends that are coming up behind me of like, if you give it away, make sure you're doing it right. Because that's a huge part of it of like, now, like if someone else makes dinner, I'm just going to eat it. Like I'm not going to have anything to thank you for cooking. Like, thank you for doing this, like whatever I've given away, I can't get back in there and then I'm like a tornado. And when the team listens to this, they're going to laugh because they're going to be like, you do that at work too. Like, whatever. It's learning.
You got an amazing team. Okay, so now, I mean, wow, what a whirlwind. I know so much about you that it makes it difficult for me to like really ask the right questions because I just know so much about you and about your whirlwind life.
Yeah.
How do you feel about being married to the Ryan Major, who is now like done all this stuff and is not even past the starting line, really? Right. How does is it?
I mean, it's awesome in the sense that because I've kind of educated myself on the world and like numbers, like what certain numbers mean, and when a number isn't a normal thing. And that's I think where a lot of people miss the boat, because you can rattle off like your production or whatever and just be like, oh, that's cool, and like somebody be like, oh, they hear million behind it. And that kind of gets a little bit more like, oh, million, oh, wow, But the difference between, a million and 20 and 40 and so on is a huge difference. So no, it's awesome. At the end of the day, like it's my wife. And, and I love her if she's, on stage in front of all these people, or she's, just at home hanging out with me. I try to support the best way. And I mean, tell her to say yes. Cause she'll ask me like, should I go to this thing? Should I do this thing? And, it's like, well, it's a cost benefit. Like, what do you think you're going to get from it? And if it's all positive, then yeah, like, we'll figure everything else out. Like literally we'll stop and figure everything else out. There's nothing we can't. And I'm super that way about most things. Like there's an answer to everything. From my job, that I have that belief that all the answers to all the questions exist. We just have to find out who either has the answer or where the answer lies. But as long as you like do the work, get to work, you can find the answer and there is a solution. The interesting thing, or the hardest part too, with my job is where she tells me everything about hers. Like mine, part of it is because of the subject matter, and it's with the analyst position, right? It's like anybody that does like a social worker, right? Like you're not the situations you're in or you're looking into or investigating are never happy situations, right? Like you're not investigating, people doing great things, saving a bucket of puppies out of the orphanage with all the kids from a fire, right? Like you're not investigating that, right? And so as far as the conversation, like she gets less from me with my day to day. Partly she doesn't need to worry about it and I compartmentalize in a good way, like, and process things in my own way. But she gets a little bit less of that, which I think probably has a negative effect in some senses of like, she just can't connect as well. Like she knows I'm at work and she knows I'm working. If anything ever is like overly so, we'll have kind of those roundabout conversations about it. But yeah, it's probably a little bit more.
It used to really bother me like a lot. but now I'm really busy. So I'm like, hey babe, how was work? Was it good? Okay, cool.
That's really all I want to know.
Yeah, it actually is okay now, because I like that you have that to be your thing. And he won't tell you, but he's a freaking rock star at work, and he always gets all these accolades and awards, but nobody ever knows about it because he's Man in Black. So, like Will Smith with your little glasses.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I admire the fact that you're able to do that. And I'm thankful that I can like throw all the real estate like at you. Like, this is crazy. This is going on. And you're just like, your brain goes like, and like you compartmentalize it for me, and you help me make sense of what the next right thing is to do. Mm-hmm. And so being married to an analyst in that regard is really cool. When he digs into like the P&L, that's not my favorite.
Well, and a lot of it, the conflict that arises, like we talked about this the other night a little bit, it doesn't always have to be a battle, right? Like your client, there is a best case for your client. There's a best case for my client, where like, let's see if we can find the best case together. And if we can't, good luck. We hope you find the home of their dreams, but it seems like the number of times, people will have an issue, or, they just are more combative about it, where it's like, no, like we're all trying to do great things for our people. Like if it doesn't work out, cool. Like you keep going,
Yeah.
There's these other 2 houses over here. They might like those, go check them out. Stuff like that with my job, because it's so black and white, it's you either broke the law or you didn't. And here's the things that said you broke it. Here's the things that said you didn't, so it makes my job really easy. And I try and apply that to a lot of her stuff. It's just like, well, what is the issue? Like, let's find the underlying issue, and can they get over it? They can't. Okay, let's move on. Let's rock on. Let's not worry about it.
The same is true now, like as the team has grown and people come on and go off of the team, right? Like, because so many people make it so emotional. OMG. When people leave their team or their brokerage, and then it's like, well, we hate them now. No, you just invested so much time and effort and energy into growing these people up, and now they're going to fly your nest and they're going to be amazing. Let them go and love them. And when they bring you a deal, be excited because you trained them. So you're going to be able to negotiate the junk out of that deal because you taught them how to negotiate. So like, enjoy that. Because, when I came to KW and launched my business here after being at another brokerage, there was a lot of ickiness that like everybody felt real icky about it. And I didn't want to. I wanted to exit gracefully, and I wasn't actually allowed to in certain instances, right? And so it made it feel very funky. And so he's very much like, okay, well, this team member thinks that this opportunity is going to be better for them, and you don't, and that's fine, but let them go and let them take what they learned with you and apply it there, and we'll see what happens. And when they're successful, awesome. And if they're not, bummer. Do you want them back? If you do, bring them back.
Yeah. Like, if a team member is not a good fit, like, okay, like, listen, I don't think these are the things we require in our team. You're not wanting to do those things. That's okay. Let's find a team that works for you. And these are the teams that I think you might enjoy. I'll introduce you to those people, and you can have an interview and go for it, and instead of, because I've witnessed it from, the
aftermath.
Well, yeah, like her, like just having to talk through what she was dealing with, and, kind of the back channel conversations that were happening about, they're leaving. Okay, they're dead to us. Just that almost sentiment that's just like, what are you talking about? Like, we all exist. We're all in the same town. Like,
of 5,000 people.
Right.
Like, let's just be honest. There's 5,000 people in Lindale, and 4,000 of them have their real estate license. So we're going to have to all get along. Like, it's just bonkers. Yeah. But yeah, that perspective has been so helpful. And then navigating things through the market center and all of that. Like, I hear his voice so often in my head between the two of you. Kara's my coach. We didn't say that. Between the two of you, like, I'm like, oh, okay. So I have Kara. It's like my good and better little devils. Like, y'all just like help me analyze the world. But it's so helpful. And because I get a little emotional sometimes, and so I have to let it down.
All right. So, Justin, you are not normal.
Okay.
Okay. So, but what would you have to say to someone who is more of normal, who's married to a realtor, male or female?
Mm-hmm.
It can't be easy to be married to a serious producing realtor.
No, I mean, the first thing, the hours, like the realization of the hours, because you go into it with this idea of just like, oh, you will show, oh, I can just show when I want to, and you know, like, and it's like, well, no, like if you have active buyers, even two, let's say you have two active buyers, we were talking about that last night, you know, that could be, you're showing 3 houses and they find the one they love. You could show 36 in the next 4 days. And then what that looks like for the family, like, okay, well, we're not seeing her that much, you know, and so you have to be ready for that. And I think
You're not.
no, you never are, because nobody really, I mean, nobody comes to you and says like, okay, this is what the next, 6 to 12 to
We should
18,
create that.
right?
Megan.
So, I mean, tailor your expectations, try to, and have, thankfully, especially in Keller Williams, there's several, you'll always find in every office, several people that are like, if you want to have a conversation, be like, listen, like, what does this look like? What am I in for? What am I? And hopefully whoever you have bonded to or kind of teamed up with will be having those conversations with you, leading up to it. But let's have those conversations of like, what are the hours? Like, what am I really getting myself into? And then communicating that with your spouse, like, okay, like this is what my weekends probably for the next 3 to 6 to 9. Well, yeah, it all depends, right? Like, because you can choose to not work weekends if you would like, but that's going to end very quickly, or you are going to end your career in real estate very quickly, because that's the bread and butter, right? Like that is when most people have the time to go look at places. I think on the financial side of things, the conversation needs to be, because in that world, you finally get to the finish line, you have a closing, you get this check with all this money that you like. Some people, I know for us early on, like in a single sitting, like is probably some of the biggest checks like we'd ever held, right? And they weren't huge closings.
They were like $3,000.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, oh, okay, like what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna throw it? And taxes, right? Like there's all the things that it's just like, you need to think about all of these things, because the worst case scenario, especially for a new realtor, and since money issues tend to be one of the leading issues in relationships and marriages and all of that, because I can tell you, if you start and you work all year, that next tax bill, because you didn't set aside anything for taxes, is going to be a conversation in your household. And on top of that, the next 6 to 7, 8 to 9 to 10 big checks are simply going to pay taxes instead of all these things you planned for. So the money conversation is huge. And like what we had the benefit, and it's how we wanted it also, of we budgeted off of my check. And so anything she had coming in would be extra. And smart. Now, a lot of that had to go to debt because we were dumb. We were dumb with credit cards, and we were dumb with a lot of things.
So look right in here and tell them why to not be dumb with credit cards.
Oh, you.
Well, the biggest thing for me that is I finally grew to hate the idea that I was paying for something that exited me in the bathroom. I was paying for that 6 months later. Something that ended up in the toilet, and I flushed at 20 whatever percent interest. That is once you think about it that way, that is it's the stupidest thing anyone could do. The fact that you are paying money 6 months later for something that you put in the toilet. Yeah, for lack of a better word. I was trying to keep it clean,
Yeah, this is a family show.
That credit cards, there's a lot of ways to be super smart with them. And if you have, it's the discipline side of it, which the P&L and all of the financial side, that's really where, like, I told her early on the financial side, it's just like, listen, like, I'm handling the house. I cannot handle learning the QuickBooks and managing the finances of the business and figuring out all of these other like tax things. Like, I'm happy to do I was up until once we finally got the accountant, I was perfectly fine filing our own taxes. But I was like, I'm not doing business taxes. I'm not learning business tax code in order to do the business taxes. And so,
leverage.
Yeah, that is where you leverage. But there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, the financial side on the business side that she took the reins on and learned and is constantly learning and getting better at, like the structure of all of that.
And it's learning to play red light, green light simultaneously at the office and at home.
Can you explain red light, green light for those people that don't know what you mean?
So when somebody comes to you and they say, I have this awesome opportunity for you to sponsor this basketball team, and your sign's going to be up on the scoreboard, and you're going to get all the real estate business in the world. And you're like, okay, great. How much is it? And they're like, $3,700. And you're like, no, okay. So then you go back and you look at your profit and loss and you decide, is this a red light or a green light? Do I feel like I want to green light this and it's really going to have a cost benefit to me? Or is it not the right time? And being comfortable with saying no. As realtors, I've never met a realtor who doesn't suffer from shiny object syndrome. We all have it. I think they give it to you with your license. It's like just comes with it. And you think that this thing is going to be that thing that's going to it's going to be the catalyst for all the business that I want. Okay, now I'm going to look in the camera and tell you guys, there's no thing except for you. Like, you are the catalyst for the business that you want. And like Gary always says, the best lead generation source is the one that you actually use, right? Like, so you have to play red light and green light. Not everything is going to be a green light all the time. And so if an opportunity arises and I want to go do this thing or go to this class or whatever, it might be a red light. Not necessarily financially, but it could be a red light for the time, or I can't take that time away from the team right now because I've got, 3 baby agents who need to learn how to write a contract or whatever it may be. So Megan, who's my director of operations, we play red light, green light over here. And then Justin and I play red light, green light over here. He's really good at the red light. I'm not as good at home. I'm good at the office at the red light. I'm not as good at home.
We have a lot of the office conversations though too, especially early on. She would talk about like paying for lead gen and everything. I'm just like, okay, well, how we're paying this much? Like, what's the conversion? Like what are we actually looking at? Because at times it's like, well, I'm doing this thing, I'm getting these things, these leads. Okay, but are they good? Are they cold? Are they hot? Like, what is the benefit of it? And having those like serious conversations of like, is this truly, especially knowing the Buffini model, right? Like, it's calls, notes, pop buys, right? It's working your sphere. It is all of that.
Yeah.
And he's very much like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to pay for that. Like, enough people, and as you build it out, you will be fine. That being said, you can get good leads through all of these different organizations, but
you have to work them.
You have to work them, and the types of leads and the quality of leads are different throughout all of them. And so it's really finding the good ones that it's just like, okay, this is worth the money because, one good lead a month from them is covering it, and I'm getting 2 or 3. So it's doing the numbers. Like, I enjoy the numbers.
Should be 5 times, just as a rule.
5 times. Yeah. That idea, I think when you get so busy, you forget to look back at some of those things. And it's the strategic side, right? It's pulling back at 20,000 feet and looking at it, because it's easy to get in the weeds because it's this deal, then this deal, and then this deal. And for me, because I could do that easily because I wasn't in each and every deal, I'd be like, well, okay, why are we paying this much money to them still? Like, what is that doing? Yeah.
And so one of the things that I learned on one of my trips through her best life, which is a female leadership organization that was started by like Wendy Papasan and Sarah Reynolds and a group of those women, was that you need to publicly, if you have a team, publicly display your cost per lead. So when you do, like those of us that have teams, we do supplement with internet purchase leads, because I've got a great sphere and we're still about 89% referral based, even at, we'll do about 120 deals this year. We supplement with those internet leads. And so I want not only my agents, but I want my admin and my ISAs and everyone to know the cost per lead. Because when I was at my last brokerage, they had us on a Zillow round robin with like 33 people. So you got like one Zillow call every 90 days or something. But with that, like on the Zillow leads, you see that come up and it'll pop up Zillow lead. And I know every agent that's ever had a Zillow lead is like, do I want to answer this? And if you choose to answer it, now it's going to come into your Premier Agent account, and that's going to be your cost per lead, right? And they may want to buy a house. They may want to talk about their brother who just went to the moon. They may, you never know what you're going to get on the other end of that phone line. So I want my agents to know the cost for each lead so that when they get that internet lead and we've gotten it warmed up through our lead department, that they know, okay, not Ryan. It's not Ryan, it's not Justin, it's not Megan paid that for that lead. It's the major team, which they're invested in, paid that much for that lead. And so they're going to take that seriously, because that's not my profit and loss. That's their profit and loss too, because we're a team. And so they all know, like, this is how much that costs. I'm going to take that seriously, and I'm going to take care of these people just like they were my own mama, because we spent a lot of money to get their phone number. So we're going to call them back. That's the goal. I hope that that's their attitude every time they see that lead come in. Because it was not my attitude when I wasn't paying for those internet leads that were given to me. Because it wasn't communicated properly of like, this is how much this costs. This is what being a part of this is. And this is what you need to do to run it down effectively. And so it goes back to communication. And that's the biggest, and knowing your numbers, knowing your data, which my analyst husband has exemplified for me over the years of what's the data, what's the return on investment.
ROI. It's always ROI.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good questions to ask. So any hints for Ryan for how you communicate with your husband? Again, you're not normal either.
Right.
Yeah. But how you communicate with your husband and get his buy-in and your kids and their buy-in to, sometimes I'm not going to be able to be home for dinner.
Yeah.
What's your?
Well, so it's like everything else, right? Like it's slow and then fast, right? Like it slowly happens and then it's all of a sudden. And my coach, who's been with me since 2020, knows that I was never home for dinner. And so it has been that time in our life of before the team, when I was doing 60 deals a year by myself without a Megan and without a TC and like just me, it was bad. And I was working 24 hours a day, like every day. And so now if there's 1 or 2 days a week when mama's not home for dinner, it's okay. And I had
It's supposed to be one.
I know. Well, the only other time I'm not home for dinner is Wednesday when I'm at the float spa for my quiet time.
That's a good, yeah. Yeah, you want her to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yes. He's like, are you floating today? So they know, and it's all about communication and then being super intentional with the time when I do have my kids. Like I'll have a moment here or there where I'm like, I'll see my friends taking their kids to the water park in the middle of the day or something. And I'm like, oh, should I do that? Like, I feel bad. I don't get like all these days with the girls. I get more time with Bethany because she's on the team. She's 17 now and she's our mailroom, right? So she's at the office a lot of days. So I see her and I love that she gets to see mom be the boss. Like that's really cool. But Justin made a comment, it was about a month and a half ago. He said, babe, when you're with the kids, you're doing cool stuff and you're with the kids. Like, and they know that if they get a day with mom, like it's a cool thing. And we are very intentional about what we go do. And so just communicating that with them and then we roll on. And like, they get the fruits of it. Like the major family is, we are in a completely different place as a family, mentally, emotionally, financially. Like it's just so crazy to watch the difference in the way our family is able to walk through the world. It's really cool. And we moved our kids back into a 1,000 square foot house a year ago. So that they would be, they'd have a struggle that they could talk to their therapist about sometime in their life. We wanted to make sure they could struggle.
Well, they chose to be in the same room, though.
They did.
That was we were surprised.
I think I don't know. I think I sold them on that, but I don't remember how. We'll have to ask them. Yeah. But yeah, they're sharing a room. There's an extra bedroom, but it's got the Peloton in it. Yeah. And they're sharing a room, and they're 17 and 11, so they've got a 6-year age gap. And they're cool kids. We like them. We're going to keep them.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay. So any words of wisdom from either one of you for somebody understanding how to have a better marriage when you're married to a realtor, or when you are a realtor and you're married to an analyst?
Well, our number one core value as a family and as a team, my team's number one core value is grace. We lead with grace. And if you're married to a realtor and a realtor like we're realtors, which is the thing, you're going to need to ask for a lot of grace from your spouse. You're going to need to be willing to say like 2 words that kind of suck. I'm sorry. Or I was wrong. Those things. And then just have someone who's willing to hear you when you say, for the love of God, can you pick up the groceries? Or can you do the laundry? Or can you take this kid to the doctor because I've got this person coming in and I've got to deal with it. And I know I said I could do it and I'm sorry I can't. Grace. It's all about grace.
Mm-hmm. No, I would second that, echo that. I mean, it's listening before making the assumptions, and like hearing someone out before you've already decided. And you'll do that a lot in your head, it's the idea that like, well, why is she going out to dinner, with these other people? Like, and because we have those conversations, like she goes into pretty much everything. Like, this is what I'm going to accomplish from this meeting, this dinner, this trip,
this vacation,
this trip right now today.
Yeah. And so because we communicate that, like, I know it's not just her goofing off at a dinner, right? Like, and because what happens is all of those opportunities that if you're working hard, if you're doing all the things you should be doing, growing your business, you're going to get busy and you're going to be invited to things and you're going to be asked to do things. And if you've communicated that as a couple and like what the intention, what you're trying to accomplish, and you're working towards it almost together, even though I'm not, like I am part of her business in that I'm supporting her on the home side, right? And once you've communicated that, then you don't grow the animosity that tends to grow in those situations when you're like, oh, she's just always going on these trips. And, because yeah, she is going on these trips, like, but we've communicated why and what she's doing and all the things she's accomplishing, the people she wants to be friends with. And so she's going to make herself their friend.
Sorry, Sarah.
Right.
She knows, I told her.
So yeah, I mean, communication, I mean, that you'll hear it on literally any marriage, anything, right? Like you got to communicate, but it's where I think people miss it is like, well, we talk every day, but it's like, no, it's the intentional things. And it's saying the things and bringing up, like, if you are having an issue or something's bouncing around in your head, you need to say it out loud, right? And if you say it out loud, you'll either be like, that's stupid. Why am I even thinking that? And you'll kill it yourself, or it's a real thing that needs to be talked about. And real estate, it'll always come up just because of the busy.
I am so glad that you brought up the going out to dinner and going out to lunches and all that kind of stuff, because to the outside world looking in, that's what realtors do, is they go out to lunches and they go out to dinners. And how could that possibly be productive?
Right.
How did you explain it in a way that it was so well received?
So one of the things that we do guard is the dinners and the lunches and who they're with and who else is there, right? So if there's, a male agent or a male client that wants to go have a meal or whatever, I'd like to always make sure I have a second person with me, just because we want to keep everything on the up and up to the outside world. I could care less. That's never going to happen. You've listened to this man for an hour. You know how wonderful he is. Like, I'm all in on this deal. But that, first of all, needs to be a boundary that you set for you and for your spouse and for your family, is making sure that is outwardly, like everybody knows.
But it happens occasionally, right?
It does.
It does.
It does.
I mean, you just can't avoid it.
It does. And when it does, like last time I was here, David and I went to lunch, just the two of us. And on my way to go meet him, I said, hey, I'm going to go have lunch with this guy. Is that cool with you? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. You're on the panel with him in an hour, right? You should probably get to know him. It's like, cool. Yeah. So we had some lunch and that was fine. But just overly communicating together. And then what do we get from the lunches and the dinners? Well, it's community, and it's referrals if they're from far away, and you can pick up things from how this worked for me or this didn't work for me, and they get that from you, and then it's this like beautiful cohesion. And then every time you're anywhere in the country, you have someone that like is your person there. Right? Like, I'm here for my birthday in Albuquerque. It's not exactly like the tourist destination of the world, but this is what I wanted to do. Was I wanted to come and I wanted to spend time with you, and I wanted to spend time with Kristen and with David and our friends here. And I wanted him to come and meet you guys, because my God, he's heard about y'all for 2 years. He's like, can I please meet these people and like spend some time with them? And so those are the things that's how you grow. And Gary Keller says that there will be a time in your career where you have to get on a plane to go see your best friends. And that is so true in my life with my Empire Circle girls. I mean, they are going through the same struggles. They're going through the same thing with growing their businesses, growing their teams. And when we're together, we can just like take a breath and just exist. And no one's worried about how much money they're making. And no one's worried about what brand handbag you walk into the restaurant with. They're just happy to see you and love on you. And like, it's authentic and real. Like, that's where the trips are worth it. Mm-hmm. And like, you pick up some really cool things along the way about systems, and then like your business grows, and then you become like the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
There we go. Well, thank you for being so supportive of a wonderful realtor. And thank you for being so supportive of a man who has watched over our country and is continuing to. And I honor you, and I respect you, and I appreciate you very much. And thank you for taking care of my friend.
Thank you.
Love you guys.